Hello, hello. Welcome back to New Housewife Cooks. Today we are going to make the Pioneer Woman's Marry Me Chicken. It is so good. It is one of our favorite meals here. I don't make it often because it requires a lot of ingredients, but we just so happen to have everything and we haven't had it in a while, so I was like, why not? So let's go through the ingredients. I have two huge chicken breasts that I have defrosted earlier today. Salt, pepper, flour, salted butter, olive oil, some diced onions, garlic, or in this house we call it jarlic, crushed red pepper, tomato paste, white wine, chicken bouillon cubes, but we're going to turn it into chicken broth, sun-dried tomatoes, dry packed, not with the oils, Italian seasoning, heavy whipping cream, and Parmesan cheese. And you know what? I forgot the most important ingredient, dried parsley, because if it's not green, it's not healthy. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is cut our chicken. And I think I'm going to bring you closer because what we're going to do for the recipe is with these enormous chicken breasts that I have, we're going to cut them horizontally so that way they are thinner. We have more chicken breast servings and that they cook more evenly. So let me bring you closer. Okay, I have you right up with my cutting board so that you can see the perspective of how thin I cut the chicken. I don't have a tripod, so you're leaning up against my son's water bottle. So let's get the chicken. Do you see how huge that chicken breast is? Man. So what I like to do is cut the fat and like the cartilage, whatnot, off the edges of the breast. Because I don't know about you guys, but I happen to get the chicken ick very easily. So it is in my best interest to trim off any gross pieces before I start to actually season it and cook it. So like all of that, take off. Okay, so now I'm going to cut it horizontally. And to show you, I hold my hand completely flat and I go slowly across. If it's not even, it's not a Michelin restaurant. Just go slowly and you can adjust as you cut. There we go. So now you can see I have cut them and they are pretty similar in their thickness now, which will be really helpful for cooking. So I'm just going to do the other one, and the other one is a much smaller piece. I guess they got frozen together, so it's a very mangled piece. But I'm not going to cut this one horizontally. I'll probably, yeah, that's good. Just wanted to trim off the fat. It looks like it was actually half a breast that we used previously because this is all flat as if it was cut. So, but that's okay. The recipe calls for like 4 of these sized chicken breasts, but we're just a family of 3. We don't need that much, and that's okay. Like you can adjust the oil and butter accordingly with the meal. So the next part is to season our chicken with salt and pepper, both sides. And then with my gloved hand, I kind of like to pat in the seasoning. Okay, gotta flip it. Okay, next I have about a half cup of flour that I'm going to put on this plate. Just shake it so it kind of becomes even on the plate. Probably just push it around a little bit because we're going to dredge our chicken in the flour. So let me get another glove. And you're going to pick up your chicken and lay it flat and push it in to the flour. And then pick it up, flip it, and make sure that it's fully covered. And then if there's like little cracks, make sure you get the cracks with the flour too. Okay, so that's how it looks on both sides. I'm going to put that back on my cutting board and do the other two pieces. This one is so weirdly shaped that it doesn't really matter. Okay, that's that. And then the last piece. Just pressing it in, flipping it, getting the other piece. Just making sure that it's evenly coated. There we go. And you're all done with the flour. So next we are going to cook the chicken. So I am going to turn on my stove to about medium-high heat. And I have 1 tablespoon of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter. And you're gonna let this warm up until the butter fully melts and becomes a little bubbly. And then that's when you know that's when your chicken is good to go in. And in the meantime, I'm going to get my chicken broth started because normally I have chicken stock, but this time I ran out of chicken stock. Otherwise, I'd be using that. But in the meantime, I'm going to get 2 cups of water and my bouillon cubes. And that's a quick way to make chicken broth. All right, so now our pan is got fully melted butter and it is bubbly, and we're going to put in our chicken. I'm going to start with these 2 smaller pieces and always lay it away from yourself and away from yourself. And then we're going to cook these about 4 minutes aside, and then we'll do this piece. And then in the meantime, here is our bouillon cubes that are going to be in boiling water for chicken broth. And that's for later in the recipe when we make our sauce. Good. All right, our timer just went off for 4 minutes. So we're going to flip these. And that color is what we're looking for, that golden brown. I'm just going to move the butter and oil around a little bit so it gets more of that flavor. And then let them cook for another 4 minutes. So our timer just went off. So I'm going to cut the heat and take off our chicken and see what the bottom looks like. Yeah, let's start with that little guy. That looks good. It's hard to do this. There we go. That looks great. All right, so we are at 167. So we are fully cooked in the chicken. So these are fully cooked. And so let's cook the last. So I added in another tablespoon of butter and about a half a tablespoon of olive oil into the pan. And I turned the heat back on to medium-high heat. And we're going to take our chicken and go away from us again. And I'll probably let this cook for 4 minutes aside, maybe 4.5, until it gets to be golden brown like those two. Here is our third piece of chicken. So all the chicken is cooked, and now it's time to move on to the rest of the ingredients. So over here, I melted 2 more tablespoons of butter into this pan, and we're going to turn on the heat to like a medium low-ish, and I'm going to throw in my chopped onion to cook about 2 minutes or until it becomes translucent. I had leftover chopped onion from earlier in the week, so this is more than half a cup, but they want you to cook about half an onion, which this is probably what that is. So if you want to be exact, use half a cup, but half an onion or a little bit more is not going to hurt. Okay, it has been about 2.5 minutes, and our onion, I wish I had a tripod, is gonna, it's translucent mostly, just take my word for it. So next we're gonna add, I like to combine steps if I know I need to add multiple ingredients in one step. So in this, I have 4 cloves of my garlic and a 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper. And I'm just gonna pour it all in here. And then as that is cooking, I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of my tomato paste. I bought a huge jar of tomato paste from my local Indian grocery store, and I was like, this is going to be perfect because I cook with tomato paste all the time, and I didn't, and it went moldy. So I'm back to using the tubes, which I don't mind. So, all right, we're going to let this simmer until the tomato paste becomes dark in color. So probably about 90 seconds, I'd say. Just letting that cook down. It already smells so good. Oh, if I didn't wear an apron, that would have been bad. Okay, you can see that it is dark in color. So now I'm going to go in with my dry white wine. If you don't drink wine, you are welcome to skip this step. It does add a flavor, but you can just stick to the chicken broth and that would be fine too. So that was half a cup of the wine. And once we pour it in, we're going to scrape the bottoms of the pan and the sides of the pan to make sure we get all that goodness mixed in. Just like that. And while that is cooking, we're going to let it cook down about 2 minutes for the wine to reduce. Okay, our wine has reduced by half. So now we are going to pour in our chicken broth that I made earlier. And then I chopped up some sun-dried tomatoes. You need 2/3 of a cup. And I have about 1/3 of a cup here, so I need to chop up some more. Here's that. And here's the second 1/3 cup. I need 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. This is like almost dead. All right, that's 1/4. Here, I'm just gonna, there. That's 1/2 teaspoon. And we're gonna mix this all together until it comes to a simmer. Okay, our sauce is simmering now. You can see that. So now I'm gonna pour in 1 cup of our heavy whipping cream. I'm kind of going out of order. At this point, they want you to add back in the chicken to simmer in the sauce, but I have found that putting in the cream first and then the chicken, it just like makes it less complicated in my opinion. So I'm gonna let this simmer. Oh, let me add in the Parmesan cheese as well. For those who don't know, my husband doesn't love cheese. There is some cheese that he will eat, but Parmesan is not one of his favorites. So the recipe calls for half a cup. I'm going to put in a quarter cup of grated cheese. Okay, in goes our quarter cup of grated cheese. And we're just going to let that... We're just going to let that... I'm okay. It's okay. I'm just going to let that mix in with the sauce for 5 minutes. Look at this beautiful sauce. So now we're going to bring over our cooked chicken and we're going to add them into the sauce so that they can melt in those flavors. And you can't forget the beautiful juices that the chicken had. We're going to let that cook for 5 more minutes. All right, we're just going to cut the heat now. And our final, most important ingredient, because we're healthy, is our parsley. It calls for fresh, but I only have dried. It's not that deep. All right, that is it. That is Marry Me Chicken. And we're going to have a taste test in just a few moments. I also have some egg noodles because that's all the pasta we had outside of like lasagna noodles to serve over the sauce. I do recommend making like a rice or a cauliflower rice or a pasta to have with the sauce since it's so much of it. And then over here, I quickly made some roasted Brussels sprouts. So let's get to plating. Let's give it a go. It makes me want to marry somebody. It is so good. I have my egg noodles covered in the sauce, and I feel like Brussels sprouts go really well with it, but you don't even have to make a vegetable, but I love it. I hope you do too if you make it. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Let me know what you want to see from this channel next. Bye.